What happens when a billionaire CEO storms into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom 45 minutes late, still on a phone call, and convinced he's too important to be judged like everyone else? You're about to witness one of the boldest displays of arrogance ever caught on camera, followed by a courtroom reality check so devastating it will shatter a lifetime of entitlement in under 5 minutes. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button for more real moments where ego collapses, truth wins, and Case Closed brings you the legendary justice of Judge Frank Caprio. Now let's begin. Tuesday, 9:30 a.m., Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio scans the docket, and one name stops him cold: Marcus Hendricks, age 52, billionaire CEO of Hendricks Pharmaceuticals. He's not here for fraud or theft or some corporate scandal. No, this entire showdown began with something small: 3 parking tickets, all for illegally parking his Bentley in handicapped spaces. 6 months, 3 violations, total fines $450. A tiny penalty for a man with a private jet, but a massive insight into his character. Hendricks skipped his first court date, no explanation. Now he's been ordered back for a contempt hearing. Judge Caprio expects accountability. What he gets instead is a man who walks into court late, refuses to end his phone call, and genuinely believes he is untouchable. And what happens next? Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because everyone, everywhere needs to see what Judge Caprio does to this CEO, and how one moment of justice can humble even the highest tower of arrogance. But when he ignored the court date entirely, didn't call, didn't send a representative, just didn't show up, it became contempt of court. The hearing is scheduled for 9:30 a.m. sharp. 9:30 arrives. The bailiff calls the case. Empty defendant's table. 9:45. Still nothing. Judge Caprio's expression shows the first signs of annoyance. He's a patient man, but he values punctuality and respect for the court's time. 10 on Judge Caprio asks the bailiff if there has been any communication from Mr. Hendricks. There hasn't. No call, no email, no explanation. For the second time, Marcus Hendricks is simply not showing up. Judge Caprio is about to issue a bench warrant when at 10:15, the courtroom doors finally open. Marcus Hendricks makes an entrance that immediately tells everyone everything they need to know about him. He's wearing a custom-tailored suit that probably costs more than most people's monthly mortgage payment, a PC Felipe watch on his wrist that could fund a year of college tuition, Italian leather shoes so expensive they should come with their own insurance policy. But it's not the clothes that capture everyone's attention. It's the attitude. He walks in with a Bluetooth earpiece still active, speaking loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear his conversation. He's discussing a merger, throwing around numbers in the millions like they're spare change. And he doesn't pause when he enters, doesn't acknowledge the judge, doesn't even glance at the bench. He walks directly to the defendant's table while still talking, gesturing with one hand like he's in his private office, not in a court of law. Judge Caprio's voice cuts through the space with quiet authority. He requests that the defendant end his call and approach the bench. Marcus holds up one finger, not to the judge specifically, just up in the air, a universal gesture that means wait. Like Judge Caprio is a waiter interrupting dinner conversation. The courtroom collectively holds its breath. Nobody does this to Judge Caprio. Nobody. Judge Caprio's voice becomes firmer. He's not asking anymore. He's telling Marcus to end the call immediately. Marcus incredibly keeps talking for another 10 seconds. He finishes his thought, tells whoever is on the other end to make it happen, and only then removes his earpiece. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't acknowledge that anything inappropriate just occurred. He just stands there, looking at Judge Caprio with mild impatience, like this is all a waste of his valuable time. Judge Caprio asks for his name, though he obviously knows it from the docket. Marcus provides it with the tone of someone who expects recognition. Marcus Hickrix, founder and CEO of Hickrix Pharmaceuticals. As if the title should mean something, as if it should change how this proceeding goes. Judge Caprio points out the obvious. Marcus was ordered to appear at 9:30. It's now 10:17. That's 47 minutes late. Can he explain? Marcus's response is stunning in its casualness. He says he had an important call with Tokyo. Time zones, you know how it is. Couldn't be helped. Couldn't be helped. Like appearing in court as ordered is optional if you have better things to do. Judge Caprio remains calm, but everyone in the courtroom can sense the temperature dropping. He explains that this is a contempt hearing. Marcus failed to appear for his original court date 3 weeks ago. No call, no explanation, just didn't show up. That's why he's here. Marcus waves his hand dismissively. He says he's an extremely busy man. He runs a pharmaceutical company worth $2.3 billion. He employs over 3,000 people across 4 countries. Things slip through the cracks sometimes. Surely the judge understands. Judge Caprio asks if Marcus received the court summons. Yes, he received it. His assistant brought it to his attention. He just had more pressing matters to deal with. Clinical trials, FDA approvals, board meetings, things that actually matter in the real world, things that actually matter. The implication is clear. Court proceedings don't. Judge Caprio reviews the original charges. 3 parking violations in handicapped spaces. Does Marcus have a handicapped placard? No. He doesn't. He explains that the handicap spots near his building are convenient. It's only for a few minutes while he runs in for meetings. Nobody's ever parked there when he uses the spots, so what's the harm? Judge Caprio points out that those spaces are reserved by law for people with disabilities. Using them without authorization is illegal regardless of how briefly. Marcus's response reveals the depths of his entitlement. He suggests that perhaps the city should consider executive parking for business leaders who contribute significantly to the local economy. Make the system work better for everyone. The courtroom is silent. Did he just suggest the city should give him special parking privileges because he's wealthy? Judge Caprio's expression hardens slightly. He explains that the law applies equally to everyone. There are no exceptions for wealth or professional success. And this is when Marcus makes his first catastrophic mistake. He laughs, not nervously, genuinely amused. He tells Judge Caprio that in theory, the law applies equally to everyone, but in practice, anyone who's been successful knows the system works differently depending on your resources and connections. He's not even trying to hide it. He's openly stating that he believes wealthy people get different treatment. And he's not apologizing for it, he's defending it as simply how the world works. Judge Caprio's voice becomes very quiet. He asks Marcus to explain what he means by that. Marcus, misreading the quiet as interest rather than warning, elaborates. He talks about how he employs the best lawyers, how he makes significant charitable donations that build relationships with community leaders, how his company pays millions in local taxes. These things create goodwill, he explains. They smooth rough edges. They make problems like parking tickets go away. He's describing corruption as if it's just smart business practice. Judge Caprio points out that what Marcus is describing sounds like using money and influence to evade legal consequences. Marcus shrugs. He prefers to call it being a savvy citizen, understanding how systems work and using available resources. Any successful person does the same. Judge Caprio asks if Marcus thinks his wealth should influence how this court handles his case. Marcus's answer is stunning in its honesty. He says that obviously it should. His time is worth thousands of dollars per hour. The economic impact of his work affects thousands of lives. Meanwhile, parking tickets are minor administrative matters that courts deal with to generate revenue. A man in his position shouldn't have to waste hours in courtroom proceedings that could be resolved with a simple payment and a phone call from his attorney. The courtroom is absolutely silent. Every person is watching this unfold with disbelief. Judge Caprio remains remarkably calm. He asks Marcus if he understands why he's here today. Not for the parking tickets, for contempt, for ignoring a court order to appear. Marcus waves this away. He says contempt is a strong word. He didn't ignore anything. He just prioritized more important obligations. If the court had called his office to reschedule, this whole situation could have been avoided. If the court had called him to reschedule, like judges work for defendants rather than the other way around. Judge Caprio points out that defendants are required to appear as ordered. Courts don't call
to accommodate individual schedules. Marcus's patience, what little he had, is clearly wearing thin. His tone becomes condescending. He explains to Judge Caprio that perhaps the judicial system needs to modernize. In the business world, everything is flexible. Virtual meetings, delegated responsibilities. In the 21st century, requiring physical presence for minor matters is inefficient. He just told a judge that court proceedings are inefficient and need to be updated. In that judge's own courtroom. Judge Caprio's response is measured. He explains that the justice system isn't a business. It's a constitutional framework designed to ensure equal application of law. Flexibility can't mean wealthy defendants don't have to show up while others do. Marcus makes his second catastrophic mistake. He says that Judge Caprio is missing his point. Then he leans forward slightly, looks directly at the judge, and speaks slowly, like explaining something to a child. He says, "Your Honor, with all due respect, you cannot judge me the same way you judge ordinary people." The courtroom erupts in shocked gasps. Someone in the gallery actually says, "Oh my God," out loud. Judge Caprio's voice drops to barely above a whisper. He asks Marcus to repeat what he just said. Marcus doesn't back down. He doubles down. He says he's not ordinary. His responsibilities aren't ordinary. His impact on society isn't ordinary. When he makes decisions, thousands of jobs are affected. When his company succeeds, entire communities benefit. That level of importance, he explains, requires the system to make accommodations. Judge Caprio asks a simple question. Does Marcus believe he's above the law? Marcus's answer will be talked about in this courthouse for decades. He says he's not above the law. He's just operating at a level where the law needs to be applied with perspective and nuance. If you're not subscribed, hit that button right now, because what Judge Caprio does next will be one of the most powerful moments you'll ever see in a courtroom. Judge Caprio sits back in his chair. He takes off his glasses. He looks at Marcus Hendricks for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he asks, "Mr. Hendricks, do you know what you sound like right now?" Marcus looks confused. He's not used to questions like this. He's used to people agreeing with him, nodding along, telling him he's brilliant. Judge Caprio provides the answer. He says Marcus sounds like a man who's been told he's special for so long that he started believing he's actually a different species of human being, that the rules that govern society don't apply to him because he's achieved financial success. Marcus tries to interrupt, but Judge Caprio holds up one hand. He continues. He tells Marcus that in his 32 years on this bench, he's seen thousands of defendants, rich, poor, young, old, educated, uneducated. And the one thing he's learned is that arrogance looks the same whether it's wearing a custom suit or a prison jumpsuit. Marcus's face flushes red. This is not how people talk to him, ever. Judge Caprio explains that this courtroom is one of the few places in America where wealth doesn't matter, where connections don't help, where the only currency is respect for the law and basic human decency. And Marcus Hendricks has shown neither. Marcus makes his final catastrophic mistake. His ego won't let him back down. He says that perhaps Judge Caprio doesn't understand the pressure of running a major corporation, the weight of making decisions that affect thousands of people, the reality of operating at the highest levels of business and society. He pauses, then delivers the line that will define this entire hearing. Your Honor, in my world, I am God. What I say happens. When I make a decision, it becomes reality. I control outcomes. I create value. I determine success or failure. So when I tell you that I had more important obligations than appearing in court for parking tickets, you need to understand that I'm not exaggerating. In my industry, among my peers, within my company, I am literally God. The courtroom explodes. Multiple people gasp. Someone in the back row says, "He did not just say that." The court reporter stops typing, her mouth open in shock. Judge Caprio's expression doesn't change. If anything, he becomes calmer, more focused, like a surgeon preparing for a precise operation. His voice, when he speaks, is deadly quiet. He asks Marcus if he just referred to himself as God. Marcus, realizing too late that he's crossed the line, tries to backtrack. He says it's a metaphor, an expression common in business. It just means he has significant authority and responsibility. Judge Caprio nods slowly. He says he understands metaphors. He also understands arrogance, contempt, and delusions of grandeur. And Marcus Hendricks has demonstrated all three in spectacular fashion. Then, Judge Caprio delivers a lesson in humility that Marcus will never forget. He begins by addressing the original charges: 3 parking violations in handicapped spaces. Each violation was $150. Marcus failed to pay, so they increased to $300 each. Total, $900. Marcus reaches for his pocket. He actually starts to pull out his wallet, ready to pay and leave. Judge Caprio's voice stops him. He says they're not finished, not even close. Failure to appear for the original court date is contempt of court. That carries a fine of up to $1,000. Judge Caprio imposes the maximum, $1,000. Marcus's confidence wavers slightly, $1,900 total. Still manageable, still just money. But Judge Caprio continues. Appearing 47 minutes late today without valid excuse is an additional contempt, another $1,000. Now Marcus looks concerned. $2,900 total. Judge Caprio isn't done. He lists Marcus's behavior in this courtroom today: entering while on a phone call, refusing to end the call when instructed, making the court wait, dismissing the proceedings as unimportant, suggesting that laws should apply differently to him because he's wealthy. And then Judge Caprio's voice rises, calling himself God. Each item is an aggravating factor demonstrating willful disrespect for judicial authority. The fines keep mounting. Disrespect to the court, $1,000. Obstruction of proceedings, $500. Contemptuous behavior during sentencing, $500. Marcus's face has gone pale. The total is approaching $5,000. Real money, even for a billionaire. But more importantly, the public humiliation is sinking in. Judge Caprio delivers the final blow. He tells Marcus that he's also referring this case to the Rhode Island Bar Association with a recommendation that they investigate whether Marcus's admitted practice of using money and influence to make legal problems disappear constitutes witness tampering or obstruction of justice. Marcus stammers. He didn't mean it that way. He was just explaining how things work in business. Judge Caprio's response cuts to the bone. He says that's exactly the problem. Marcus has spent so long in an environment where money buys solutions that he's forgotten what it means to be accountable under law.
He's surrounded himself with people who call him a genius, who agree with his every decision, who treat him like he actually is a god. And he started believing it. The judge leans forward. He tells Marcus something that will echo in this courthouse for years. Mr. Hendricks, you are
Not God. You are a citizen of Rhode Island who parked in handicapped spaces because you thought your time was more valuable than disabled people's needs. You are a defendant who ignored a court order because you thought your business was more important than the justice system. You are a man who walked into my courtroom 47 minutes late, refused to end a phone call, and told me I couldn't judge you like ordinary people because you're special. Well, I have news for you. In this courtroom, you're not special. You're just another person who broke the law and needs to be held accountable. The silence is absolute. Marcus Horace, a man who controls billions of dollars and thousands of employees, stands before Judge Caprio, looking smaller than he's ever looked in his life. Judge Caprio delivers the final sentence. Total fines? $1,400. Due within 30 days. If unpaid, a warrant will be issued for arrest. And Marcus needs to understand the warrant won't be served at his convenience. Officers will come to his corporate headquarters in front of his employees and take him into custody. Additionally, Judge Caprio orders Marcus to complete 40 hours of community service, but not just any service. He'll serve at a center for disabled citizens, specifically helping wheelchair users navigate the city every Saturday for 10 weeks, 4 hours each Saturday starting this weekend. The man who parked in handicapped spaces because he was too important to walk an extra 50 feet will spend 40 hours assisting the people whose spaces he stole. Marcus tries one last time. He says his lawyers will appeal this excessive sentence. Judge Caprio's response is devastating. He welcomes the appeal. He'd love to see Marcus's attorneys explain to a higher court why their client told a judge he was God and shouldn't be judged like ordinary people. He's sure that footage will play very well. Marcus leaves the courtroom a broken man. His face is red with humiliation. His hands are shaking. For the first time in decades, someone has told him no. Someone has held him accountable. Someone has looked at his wealth and his power and his influence and said, none of that matters here. As he exits, he passes an older woman in the gallery who's sitting in a wheelchair. She looks up at him with an expression that's not angry, just sad, disappointed. She says quietly, "I park in those handicap spots, sir. I have multiple sclerosis. Some days those extra 50 feet you think are inconvenient, they're the difference between me shopping for groceries or going home because I can't make it. You're healthy, you're successful, you have everything. And you thought you deserve those spots more than me?" Marcus has no response. He walks out in silence. Within hours, the video goes viral. CEO calls himself God in court becomes trending worldwide. Legal analysts discuss it on cable news. Business schools use it as a case study in ethical leadership failures. Marcus's own company's stock drops 3% as investors worry about his judgment. The board of Hendricks Pharmaceuticals calls an emergency meeting. They don't discuss firing him. He's the founder and he's made them all rich. But they do vote unanimously for mandatory leadership coaching, anger management, humility training, regular meetings with a corporate accountability consultant. Marcus issues a public statement apologizing for his behavior. But the real change happens privately. On his first Saturday of community service, Marcus reports to the Providence Center for Independent Living. He's assigned to help wheelchair users access businesses that aren't fully ADA compliant. His job is to assist with doors, ramps, and navigating obstacles. He meets Eleanor Rodriguez, a 68-year-old woman with MS who uses a motorized wheelchair.
She needs help getting into a grocery store where the automatic door is broken. Marcus holds the heavy door open while she navigates inside. It takes 2 minutes. His arms hurt. He's sweating in his casual clothes that he bought specifically for this work. Eleanor thanks him. Then she says something that changes everything. "You know, people like you probably think my life is tragic. Can't walk, need help with simple things, but I'm happy. I have family, friends, purpose. I volunteer at a library teaching kids to read. I've been married 42 years. I have 5 grandchildren. My life has meaning and value, even though I can't park far from entrances." The message is clear. She's disabled and happy. He's able-bodied and spent years being miserable with arrogance. Over 10 weeks, Marcus spends every Saturday with people like Eleanor, people who face real challenges every day and do it with grace and humor. People who don't have billions of dollars or corporate power, but who have something he's been missing: humility and perspective. By week 8, he's having actual conversations with the people he helps, learning their names, hearing their stories, understanding that his parking spaces weren't just inconvenient, they were insulting. They said, "My time matters more than your disability." On his final day of service, Eleanor sees him out. She tells him he's done good work. She asks if he's learned anything. Marcus's answer surprises both of them. He says he learned that he's been lonely, surrounded by people who agree with everything he says, isolated by wealth and power. He forgot what it's like to be challenged, to be wrong.
To be just a regular person who needs to follow the same rules as everyone else. Eleanor smiles. She says it's not too late to change. 6 months after his court appearance, Marcus Hendricks is a different leader. He implements new policies at Hendricks Pharmaceuticals. No executive parking spaces. Everyone parks in the same lot. If you want a close spot, arrive early, like everyone else. He starts regular listening sessions where junior employees can challenge his decisions. He donates $100,000 to disability rights organizations. Not announced publicly, just done quietly. He never parks in a handicapped spot again. Ever. Even when lots are empty and nobody would know. He doesn't do it because he remembers Eleanor. He remembers Eleanor and dozens like her who taught him what Judge Caprio couldn't, that you're only as big as how you treat the smallest person in the room. Judge Caprio is told about Marcus's transformation. He's pleased, but not surprised. He's seen it before. Some people need to hit bottom before they can grow. Marcus's bottom just happened to be very public, very expensive, and involved calling himself God. The judge says something to his clerk that summarizes everything. Arrogance is curable. It just requires the right dosage of accountability and humility. Mr. Hendricks got a strong prescription that day. It seems he took his medicine. Don't forget to subscribe to Case Closed for more unbelievable courtroom moments where ego collides with reality, where power meets accountability, and where judges like Frank Caprio remind the world that justice doesn't bow to titles, money, or ego. Because here's the truth. Wealth can't buy respect. Influence can't buy character. And calling yourself God only proves how far you've drifted from basic humanity. So, hit that like button if you believe that no matter how high someone climbs, no one is above respect, humility, or the law. And drop a comment below. Have you ever seen someone who desperately needed a reality check? Tell us your story. Because this wasn't just a tale about a CEO who declared himself a deity. This was a warning. A reminder of what happens when ego becomes delusion, when success becomes arrogance, and when a person forgets that the people they pass every day, the nurse caring for our parents, the barista serving our coffee, the worker earning minimum wage, the disabled person simply trying to get through the day, are not beneath us. They're human. They're equal. They matter. Marcus Herricks walked into a courtroom believing he was untouchable. He walked out having learned the hardest truth of all. He wasn't a god. He wasn't special. He was a man who'd forgotten how to be decent until Judge Frank Caprio reminded him. And that is the legacy Judge Caprio leaves behind. A legacy of compassion without weakness, justice without hatred, and accountability without cruelty. A legacy that teaches the world that true power is humility, and true justice is humanity. This is Case Closed, where arrogance ends and truth begins. Before you go, where in the world are you watching from? Type your country or city in the comments. I'd love to know how far Judge Caprio's legacy reaches.